There we are. Hello and welcome. I am Briar Harvey. This is the Neurodiversity Media Network. Today we are Brandon Wild, y'all. Haley and I have no idea what we're talking about, so this is going to be absolutely amazing. We're coming in with one word: differentiation. So let's define it first.
Yes, probably my favorite part of branding is differentiation. Um, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the art of being different, not just different for the sake of being different, but strategically different.
And I think that's the part where people get lost is
Yeah,
strategically different because what's that mean even?
yeah. So if you look at, we'll take a really oversaturated market, for example. We'll say coffee, because there's countless coffee brands out there. Um, at the end of the day, and I know there's some coffee snobs out there that are probably gonna like want to hang me for this. It's all kind of the same, you know. Really, at the end of the day, they're you're selling a commodity product, and so really your best bet, especially if you're doing CPG, you've got these products on a shelf or something like that. Differentiation is really the only weapon that you have. It's coffee, it's got caffeine in it, it's free trade. If all of that stuff is the same, which it probably is, differentiation is your best key to success. Um, the the way that I like to go about this is to look at your competitors, see what it is that they do, and then do the opposite.
So let's just take coffee.
Mhm.
How do we become different?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example for a coffee company that I actually worked on called Lifeblood. They marketed and it was branded in a way it was for people that were addicted to coffee, that drank a ton of it. There was no decaf options. There was nothing like that. They were very upfront in your face, like, "You need this. It's a drug, pretty much. You will go into withdrawal if you don't have this." And that was the branding. It was very in your face, and it wasn't Folgers or something like that. It was like, "We know you need it." We did a on the side. It was like the part of the bag was see through,
Hmm.
so you could see how much coffee was left, and there was little like text that was like, "Okay, you're good." And then when it got to the bottom, it was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die." To reinforce that kind of being addicted to a product kind of thing. So we didn't waste any time trying to convince people to drink coffee. Like, "Oh, we'll try this." Like, no, you're addicted to it. This is the strongest coffee that you'll be able to get. Buy it.
And that carries over beyond just the product and the packaging, right?
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
comes into the community.
Hmm.
How do we, in this example, do we talk about them as addicts? Is it, what do we do to build out a sense of connection?
Yeah, so there's different types of people that drink coffee. Obviously, you've got your coffee snobs that want to know like where the beans were roasted and for how long and stuff like that. And so we alienated those people right off the bat. Um, then you've got people that want flavored coffee and that are more like Starbucks fans that want caramel mocha frappuccino with extra whipped cream, shit like that. And we wanted to alienate those people as well. So that left us with kind of a segment of people in ranging pretty wildly in age. And so we were like, okay, do we focus on this like older crowd? And then we determined to not do that because most of those people have drank the same coffee for, decades. They're probably not going to switch. And so we targeted a kind of a younger audience, like, mid 20s to early 30s. targeted that audience because they also have a little bit more of a sense of humor, I would think, than people in their 50s would have. They would think that like signing up for that and like being called a coffee addict is cool, whereas somebody that's older might kind of get offended about it, or so that's important too, is really identifying like the messaging that you want to use to get those people to kind of call themselves out. Because with something like this, calling somebody an addict, you're you're playing with fire a little bit, but it is coffee. And there's a lot of people that would call themselves coffee addicts. And that's actually where the name came from too, Lifeblood. Um,
Mhm.
because how many times have you heard people say, like, oh, I can't live without my coffee. I gotta have my coffee in the morning. And so we're taking language and phrases that they already use and using that to reinforce the brand.
And alienate the people who are not the brand,
Hmm.
which is an important part of differentiation that I think a lot of people get wrong. How do you repel without being offensive?
A loaded question. So, this is often where I see people screw it up too. I saw this very, very heavily during the big virus that we don't need to name, and during the election, during the 2016 election. It is very easy to give your opinions on politics. It's engagement bait. If I could go post a political opinion right now and get 1,000 comments on it and do absolutely no work. Um, and a lot of people did this under the guise of differentiation or disruption or whatever they wanted to call it. But what you actually end up doing, you get the engagement, but eventually all of that stuff goes away. The pandemic's over, the election's over, the president isn't the president anymore. Eventually it'll all go away, and people will forget all the engagement clickbait stuff, but they won't forget how much of an asshole you were because you thought that this was differentiation. This is this is why I kind of hammer home the point of strategic differentiation. I'm not calling out people, I'm calling out certain processes. Okay. I don't like Starbucks coffee, it's weak. It doesn't do the job. I don't like decaf coffee because it's weak. It doesn't do the job. I don't like Folgers because it tastes like shit. Calling out stuff in your industry is a really good way to start. You don't have to do it by name. You don't have to call people out by name. There's sneaky ways to do that without looking like you're an asshole, looking like a hater. But for the most part, stick to what you know. Okay. If you don't know anything about like gun control laws and you're selling a skincare product, it's probably best to just keep your mouth shut. Talk about what's wrong in the skincare industry.
And
Be offensive towards the skincare industry.
it is, I think there is a difference here between having a personal or corporate even position and using that position as differentiation.
Hmm. Yeah, anybody can give themselves the title of CEO. That doesn't mean shit. A CEO is just an employee.
Hmm.
We don't like to talk about that. All the people that are CEOs are gonna be like, "Oh, but you're an employee. You get a W-2 at the end of the day." So,
Especially depending on the corporate structure. Even if you're the founder and
mhm.
CEO, if you are an S corp, you get paid the same as everybody else in the company.
Yep, you sure do.
So,
Yeah, and if you want to differentiate that way using your title, you got to tell a story. If you're a founder, how did you come to be a founder? What happened? You know, what's that character arc look like? Because it's, even though it may appear similar to some people, it's different. It's unique to you. Everybody has a unique story, a unique reason why they found themselves in that position.
And your character arc, just so we're clear here, is not your opinion about anything.
No. No.
So
Uh,
how do we separate them?
yeah. So I don't really talk about politics and stuff like that a lot because it unless I can relate it back to branding, right? Because that is what I do. If I can relate it back to brand strategy and give people an understanding, like the whole Bud Light thing that's going on right now. Like
Oh, I
I
was absolutely going to bring
yeah,
this one up as
I
an
know.
example. So let's do it.
So that happened and it's brand suicide, and so of course I've got to talk about it. But I try to do it in a way where it's not just like this was stupid and I'm a transphobe. It's not that. I'm like this is stupid and here's why. Here's Bud Light's target audience. This is why this was dumb. This is why their market share is now diminishing. This is, and then the CEO came out and had this like half-assed apology that looked like ChatGPT wrote it and it didn't really say anything. It's like, here's why that's also a bad idea for your brand. So I always try to relate it back to what it is that I do and at least educate people a little bit
Well,
while
since we're
also
going to do it,
sneakily giving my opinion.
right. So let's start at the top.
Mhm.
In case you've been under a rock for the last week and a half, Bud Light put a rainbow on their can. Now, it's important to note that this is not the first time that they have done this, nor are they the only brand by any
Nope.
stretch of the imagination that has supported the LGBTQ community in this way in the past, right? But then they took it up a notch and got a trans woman as their spokesperson,
Yep. It's a brand ambassador.
as brand ambassador. And truly, y'all, Haley and I give no fucks whatsoever what you think about trans issues. This is absolutely a line in the sand for a lot of people, and I get it. And also, in terms of branding, unless my people are already on the social justice side of the spectrum, I'm not sure this is the way that I go.
No, this isn't. And I will tell you why they did this. So a couple of months before this, their creative agency was Wyden Kennedy, which is a very well known, very well trusted, been in the industry for years creative agency. They've done great work. They fired them after their new VP of marketing took over, who is a woman. Obviously, I don't hate women, like, but her LinkedIn was very, pronouns and progressive and this and that and woke and stuff like that. And so you could kind of see the writing on the wall. Then they fire their creative agency. They hire another one that's not as well known, that's not as big, that's not as trusted as Wyden Kennedy was. And then they do this. That is a VP of marketing that is completely fucking out of touch with their ideal audience, that does not realize that you are selling a commodity product. Beer is a commodity product. Bud Light, especially. It's cheap. You buy a ton of it at once.
And they've always
She,
competed in that market. Like,
yeah, it's the frat boy beer.
right.
It's better than PBR, mildly.
I think that's debatable, but that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, like I don't drink anymore, so I mean I don't really give a shit either way.
No.
But but it was a vice president of marketing that wanted to show what her opinions and her values and stuff were rather than the company. If it were me in that position, I would have brought back the Real Men of Genius ads. and just put a modern spin on it. Because those ads were fucking hilarious. And I loved them. Like the ones that they ran in like the late 90s, early 2000s, those were great. And you could have a field day with them now.
So it's worth noting that that VP that we were just talking about has been given a leave of absence.
Yep. Yep.
And
And something else too that I want to point out. So they did this, and then the backlash happened. Bud Light tried to say, or Anheuser-Busch rather, tried to say that it was a low-level marketing intern, basically, that made that decision, and that no C-level executive was aware that it was happening. That's absolute bullshit. You do not fire an entire creative agency as an intern. That does not happen. There is no way, no company on earth that would have let that happen. Everybody knew. So that's bullshit. First of all, you make a horrible decision and then you try to backtrack and blame it on some intern that had nothing to do with it. And then you release a new version of like the Clydesdale commercials to try to like pull back, and it's too late at that point, and everybody knows that you're backtracking. And then your CEO, who used to be in the CIA, by the way, he's a Fed, comes out, writes this half-assed apology, and is like, "We're made in America," blah blah blah. Anheuser-Busch is a Belgian company, by the way. Yes, they were started in St. Louis. They're owned by InBev, which is a Belgian company. So if all of you are buying Budweiser and you're all rah rah America, you're still buying from a European company. I hate to tell you, the branding worked and you fell for it. So yeah. So that's
now,
how you don't handle shit like that.
Here's the part that is interesting to me, and it can go a lot of ways. The fact of the matter is that year to date, and I know we're only a little bit into the second quarter, but all this controversy has actually been really great for the stock prices. They're up $10 on the year.
They dropped a little bit.
They did. There was an immediate spike when they lost quite a bit, but overall on the year they've seen growth because people talking about them. And as they say, no news is bad news, except this is not good news.
Well, and this is something else too, and I'm just going to call out this group of people. There's a lot of people that were like, "Oh, fuck this, I'm never buying Bud Light again." And they stuck to their guns for about 2 weeks and then realized they don't like Coors Light or Miller Lite or whatever. And so what do you think they do? They quietly, once it all dies down, they sneak back in and they buy their 12-pack of Bud Light. So if you're really sick of companies doing this, you've got to stop spending money with them. It's just how it is. They're a $1 billion company. I'm not saying we're going to shut down Anheuser-Busch overnight. That's ridiculous. But if you really want to hurt them, you got to stick to your guns. And that's another point of differentiation too, just to segue back into that, is like you can't differentiate. And then when you start seeing what that does with your audience and stuff like that, back up and go, "Oh shit, wait a minute, we didn't know. You're in it now. You made your bed."
Right. Like almost at this stage of the game, the appropriate response for Anheuser-Busch would not be a half-assed apology. It would not be a temporary leave of absence for their marketing director. It would instead be, well, this is the bed we've made. Now, how do we get people in it with us?
Yep.
And
do you double down?
So, yeah. How do you get people in the bed with you?
Well, you could, and I think it might be too late to do this now. Had it happened right after, they could have come out and said, "Hey, we fucked up. We fired the chick that was in charge of this. You know, that's our bad. And just own up to it and, be an adult, right? I think it's too late for that because they did try to blame it on some intern, and then their CEO wrote that like really stupid apology. So now I think you're kind of forced with, do you just let it die down and see if you can go back to being the frat boy beer and nobody notice, which is honestly looking like what they're probably going to do. Because like I said, there's people that they're like, well, fuck Bud Light, I'll never buy it again. And then 2 weeks later they buy it because they realize that they don't like any other beer because they've drank Bud Light for 30 years and they're used to it and we're creatures of habit. So I think that's what they'll end up doing. Or they could, completely double down on it and sign up more trans influencers. Be like, this is the trans beer now. So I think you froze on me. Are you there? I think you froze.
And what's key here is that it's Anheuser-Busch and they have enough of a market share. Oh no.
Yeah, you
Am I
froze for a
there?
little bit, like right before you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Is it me? I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
it's me. Okay.
Oh shit.
We may have to try this again, y'all. I'm
Oh,
going
hang on.
to. No, I think it's you, Haley.
Shit.
Okay. Happy retrograde, everyone. Just bear with us while our tech does whatever our tech does.
Are we
How
good?
about now?
Are we good?
Are we good?
I,
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, you just like
Amazing.
froze on me for a little bit. I don't know what was going on. So
It's fine. It's
Good.
Mercury retrograde. I
That's true.
continue to maintain all of our problems. Okay. What the
The first
hell?
person that can come up with like an integration for Google Calendar that tells you when all this shit is going on is going to make a killing.
I feel like there are some calendars already that you can subscribe to, but
Now I want one that integrates with my like scheduling calendar.
oh, that would be amazing.
Right?
So okay, now I remember what I was saying. The thing about Anheuser-Busch is that they have the market share to be able to weather this kind of
Mhm.
storm. Most of the businesses that we're talking about, though, do
Don't.
not. If this kind of shit goes down, it's the end, right?
Yeah. That's why it's very, very, very important when you first start to figure all of this out. That way you've got a game plan and you don't stray from that game plan. This is going to sound crazy, but those limitations and that box that you have to play in actually give you more freedom. You have to have some limitations if you really want to be creative. You can ask anybody that's creative this, like it's true. Shakespeare did it with iambic pentameter. Musicians do it with tempo and key changes and stuff like that. Like you have to have some limitation. And in your business for strategic differentiation, you need a game plan to stick to. So you don't ever be like, oh, hey, look at that shiny thing. No, no, this way, this way, this way, this way.
And that's for your customers' benefit
Mhm.
just as much as it is for your benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's really easy, especially if you're doing products or retail or stuff like that. You start to get a little bit of traction, and you start to sell this product, and then you think, oh well, a little bit was good, so more must be better. And then you come out with a ton of products that maybe don't sell as well, but you've wasted all of this money in R&D and in producing them and getting packaging and the overhead that comes with that, and you don't get a return on your money because it's not aligned with what that original thing was. If you stick to the game plan, you can come out with new products, but they have to be in line with what you're doing. Because not doing this, you're going to alienate your current customers that loved what you were doing. They'll be like, yeah, well, I used to buy from that brand, but you know, they kind of started doing this thing, and I don't really like it, and now their products are more expensive, and they've got a lot more, and it's just kind of overwhelming, and so I switched to this other brand.
So I think when people think about brand guides, it's, a piece of paper with some fonts on it and potentially some
Not
color
mine.
choices.
Not mine.
And okay, what's on your brand guide, Haley?
Yeah, so that's a brand identity guideline, and those are super important, and I do give those to my clients. This is basically it's a visual guideline. Here's your logo. Do not squish that logo. Do not stretch that logo. Do not use backgrounds that make it blend in. It's stuff like that. It's very, visually, applicable. Strategy guidelines are a little different. An average strategy guideline that I will do is probably about 40 or 50 pages. It has everything about your brand on it, start to finish, and it will guide you at least for the next 10 years. It has competitor analysis on there. There's a gap analysis. There's a SWOT analysis that you put up against those competitors. It's why you got into business in the first place, like your reason for existing. It's different marketing channels that you can use. There's touch point guides in there. There's a user journey. There's an ideal client avatar. It is packed with information. I had a client, I did brand strategy for her about 2 years ago. She messaged me about a week ago, was like, hey, I'm having my website redone, and she needs to find like, stock photos or something for it. Do you have any of those? Or do you have guidance as to like how to find them? Like she needs like a visual guide for this. And I was like, yeah, if you go to your strategy document and you flip it to this page, send her that. She goes, "Oh, okay." And she sent it to her and she was like, "Yeah, that's great. That's all she needed." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." If you hire a copywriter and they need to know like what tone of voice and like how you message and stuff, you flip to that page and send it to them. If you're running ads, you flip to this page, you send it to them. So, that's a what I like to call actual fucking branding strategy.
Strategy, right.
Yeah.
So it's got mostly, it's not visual. Mostly it's awareness.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you start to develop that awareness for yourself.
Yeah. So, a lot of it is trial and error. And there's a lot of people that don't want to hear that really need to fucking hear that. Like, I know that this creative strategy thing is a very high level, at the top, visionary tier of thinking. This is not down like in the ditches, like, oh, we need to segment this audience and stuff like that. It's not funnels and landing pages and all of this other shiny shit that I know people talk about, like, oh, you can make six figures with this funnel. I don't do shit like that.
Well, and I think truly that's an avoidance
Mhm.
tactic. That does
It is.
not make you money. That allows you to avoid the fact that you are not making money.
Mhm. Yeah, keep spinning your gears on all that stuff. And I'm not shit talking any of that. Like, copywriters might as well be magicians to me. I don't understand that shit at all. Like, I've got mad respect for any decent copywriter because it's way beyond me. But this branding shit is hard. And one of the reasons that it's so hard is I put a very, very, very big emphasis on making sure that you know why you're doing it. Because I don't want people that come to me and they're like, oh, well, I see so many entrepreneurs and it's just the easy money train. Like, no, you are going to burn out and you'll die if you go that route. You can only say, I want to make an impact and use that as a mask for I want to make a ton of money for so long. I've seen it a million times. So,
And this is the knowing here that allows you to actually do the things that you want to do in the world.
Mhm.
I think this is a difficult question for me because, in general, whether I'm doing it well or not, I'm always trying very hard to do the thing
Mhm.
that I am good at.
Yeah.
How does one who is perhaps not so certain in that figure out what they know, what they're good at, and how to make that theirs?
You try.
Oh, Haley, you're just breaking my heart
I
here.
know. I'm sorry. Listen, I didn't know I was good at Photoshop until I sat down in it. And I wasn't when I started. I was really bad at it. And I started at a time YouTube didn't exist. Dating myself a little bit, but YouTube didn't exist. So it was basically sit down and click buttons until you figured it out. It took me years to be able to know that program like I do. And I still learn new stuff about it. I learned something new the other day in it. This fucking slider that I didn't know existed changed my life. I learned about it like 2 months ago. I was like, "Oh my god, where has this been?"
There the whole time and you
There
didn't
the
know?
entire time, and I never knew, and I never looked, and I never Googled it, and because I didn't know about it. So how do you know,
How do you know what you don't know? And
exactly.
that
So,
is definitely a branding question.
yeah. I had I had a client that came to me and we talked about this last time. They're usually always in the burn it all down stage. I'm done, I'm sick, something's got to change. And that's an ugly stage to be in, but I like people that are in that stage cuz they're hungry to change something. And if we can take away all of the stuff that they've been told by coaches and gurus and stuff like that, like, oh, you have to do it this way, you have to use these systems. If we can get past all of that and we can strip all of that shit away, we can get to the real good stuff. Like the reason why you got in business, that never changes. Your branding and your brand strategy is a moving target. It really is. And people don't like to hear that because they're like, no, I just want to do it once and then be done forever. It's not how it works. You know, new channels pop up, new technology, stuff changes. It's just how the world is. Human behavior rarely does. Over, centuries it does, but not in any of our lifetimes. So, to quote Simon Sinek here a little bit, who I'm not a major fan of, but I like this premise, which is start with why. And people fuck that up too because they think that their why has to be this giant, like, otherworldly thing. It doesn't. My why I started doing this, I don't like boring shit. I can take boring shit and make it better.
So, not to put you on the spot here, but
Please do.
let's differentiate branding and coaching.
So, I want to make a snarky joke.
Please go right ahead.
It's like branding actually fucking works. Uh,
Listen, I know amazing coaches. I've had
I do
amazing
too. I have
coaches.
one.
And coaching is incredible. But there is a lot about coaching that is very, I think ephemeral is a good
Mhm.
word. And branding is not. So Where's the line?
So I hmm it's in a way it's hard for me to answer that because when I think of coaching, I think of it as a kind of intuitive thing. It's very person to person. But branding's like that too. Really good branding is anyway. It's also tactical and analytical and you get, a game plan and a roadmap and all of that, but it's also very intuitive, you know. You have to be able to kind of coach the person that you're working with. Speaking me to my clients, people that I work with, you do kind of have to coax stuff out of them and pull and poke and prod until we get to the good stuff. And so I think there is some overlap there. It is a little bit, especially the way that I go about it with looking at the person's actual identity. There is some overlap with coaching and branding there. I think, and again, not shit talking coaches. I've had some really good ones. I've got a really good one right now. Um, I think a lot of it is just feel good stuff though. And there's a lot of coaches out there that they want you in so they can turn around and brag about how much money they made. I saw this on Facebook the other day. Actually, I don't remember who posted it, but we were talking about how kind of scummy it is, in my opinion, for coaches to constantly post about how much money they make. I,
Mm-hmm.
I understand why people do that. Um, if I ever do anything like that, please come find me. It means that I have been kidnapped and I am in trouble. Like I am doing this under duress. But there was a comment on it that said there was this woman, she had saved up like, I think it was like 10 grand or something like that. My camera's being crazy.
Doing it again.
There it goes. I'm just going to have a floating box on my head for a little bit, but there was a woman, she had saved up like, she was really early in her career and saved up like 10 or 15 grand or something like that. And there was this coach that she had followed for a little bit and she finally decided like I'm going to take the leap. This is what I need to do for my business. Like I'm going to do it. And so she sent this woman like 15 grand or something like that. The coach immediately turned around and was like, just signed a $15,000 client. It's like her at a pool in Cancun or something like that. She was like, I went into credit card debt to be able to do that. And it made me feel like shit. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what a lot of coaches are, sadly.
And arguably, differentiation wise, these coaches are brilliant.
Yeah.
No?
No, they are. There's so many of those types coming up though. There's so many of those types of coaches. It's starting to not be differentiated. You're just like, oh, they're just another, money hungry whatever. So the coaches that don't do shit like that, my coach that I have, she posts about like the new chicken coop that she built and and stuff like that. She's never once posted about like how much money she makes or anything like that. But that was one of the reasons I was like, yes, her.
Mm-hmm. And because there is real attraction in that kind of marketing with the expensive vacations and the fancy clothes and the fancy purses and the red bottom shoes that works for people to give money but not necessarily get a product or service as a
Hmm.
result.
Yeah.
So,
And I think something that if people were really honest with themselves, you need to ask yourself, do you want like the red bottoms and the constant vacations? Is
I
that
would be
what
so fucking exhausted.
I
I
would
gotta
I
be
would hate that.
really honest.
I would
That
hate
that
that.
sounds my idea of a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I don't want that at all. I want like a new truck and enough land to like have chickens and goats. Somebody promises me that, I'm like, okay, you get my money. You know? So you really, for anybody that wants to, and there's some people that legitimately do, they want that kind of luxury lifestyle and like the nice cars and stuff like that. If that's you, hey, go for it. Like we're not all the same, But I think before you spend money on somebody like that, you really need to ask yourself, like, is that what I want for myself? Is that really what I want? And that's a hard question to ask, and it could take years to answer it, but it's worth asking.
So I think the question here is, how do you determine when a brand has differentiated itself despite having bad products or services?
I'll give you a really good example. Liquid Death.
Say more. I know where this is going, but say more.
It's water.
In a can.
Yeah, in a can. It looks like a beer can, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. I've had it.
It's water.
It's fucking $4 water. Like,
right.
Yeah. But name another water company.
Right.
Yeah, there's Dasani, Aquafina, Fiji. Fiji has the square bottles. Cool, whatever. Dasani tastes like salt water, in my opinion. And I think that's a pretty popular opinion. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you get their horoscopes.
No.
You should.
I have to say,
They're
I am
amazing.
immediately attracted.
They're amazing. And like that's a really good, I never sign up for like SMS, like text message marketing. I signed up for theirs because it wasn't enter your phone number to be updated when we add new products. Nobody wants that. Like, you want a fucking silly horoscope every month? Here, put your phone number in. And of course, they send you promotional stuff too. It's fine. I look forward to the horoscopes because they're hilarious.
And at the end of the day, it's water in a can.
Yeah.
That has...
You're going to murder your thirst. That's
right.
their tagline. You don't get to do that for cheap.
Now, there are some environmental benefits to water in cans versus water in plastic.
You know what's hilarious is they never talk about that.
Never talk about that.
Never. Because I would be willing to bet that anybody that's consistently buying Liquid Death does not give a shit about their carbon footprint.
No. And truly, I think that's an indicator of good branding, is that they recognize that their actual customer base does not care about that.
Yeah, and maybe the founder or whoever started that company really cares about it.
He does. I've read articles of him talking about.
And so that's a way for them to feel like, okay, my values are aligned here and I'm doing something that I feel good about. We don't necessarily have to push that down the audience's throat, though. I'm making a difference in the product that I am producing by producing it in a can instead of a water bottle. And that's good enough of an impact for them that they don't need to be like, we're environmentally friendly like every other brand does.
I'm still not sure it's bad branding, Haley.
Oh, it's not. No, it's fantastic branding. I love Liquid Death. But it's a great example of differentiation.
That was not the question I asked.
Wait, what was the question?
How do you tell a bad product or service when the branding is so good?
Okay. Okay. I don't regret the Liquid Death thing.
No, I don't.
So, I wrote a post about this actually not too long ago. There are a lot of people that have been kind of burned on the idea of doing branding because there are a lot of people that invest in it and are really, really good at it that sell a really shitty thing. I wish I had an answer as to how to tell, like, by looking at it. If it's a product, most of the time, you just gotta buy the fucking product, sadly. But the way that it's marketed, I think you can tell a lot. Again, going back to the Coach example, if it's constantly a bombardment of how much money these people have made and never the process that they use and the results that they get their clients and stuff like that, it's probably not good.
So it's not, I can't use a brand to recognize a bad product or service. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, unless you've had previous. I mean, we've all bought from brands we don't like.
Right. Okay. That's a fair enough answer.
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer, but I don't.
No, it's fine.
You know, you just have to, and this is super cliche, generic advice, but it works. You just got to trust your gut. You know, some of the best advice I have ever heard is if the answer ain't fuck yes, it's fuck no.
And everyone watching this who does not have a sacral authority is like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Or, think about it for a couple of days and, yeah, I have that. So, I know within a few seconds it's a yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think too that brands are deceptive, and Liquid Death is actually a good example of this because their consumer doesn't care about the environmental footprint, but the brand itself does, which is why it comes in a can and not a bottle.
and it's also a point of differentiation, and so that works out for them too. And you can do cooler stuff with packaging on a can rather than a bottle. They have those cool like etched bottles and stuff, or cans.
So if I can't tell immediately whether a brand is good or bad visually, are there, aside from buying the product, are there any indicators that you yourself look for that make you go, this feels hinky to me?
So this is where visuals are really funny. You can buy a bad product that visually their brand looked very solid. You will almost never buy a product that might be good if their visuals are shitty. We've all been to a website where we're like, I don't know. Like, this is looking kind of sketchy. The product might have been awesome. It might have been life-changing, but you'll never know because you'll never buy it.
What's a sketchy visual?
We know. Have you seen that picture of it's like this tie-dye background and there's a frog, and in Comic Sans it says graphic design is my passion. Any website that you went to in the 90s, we didn't know better then. But you look at it and you get that feeling, you're like, man, this doesn't look like it was made in the last 10 years. This looks outdated. This is, the colors are too saturated. It looks like a kindergartner did this. Why is this freaking me out? And you may not, like, I can look at, a logo and be like, that's off center, the colors are clashing. I can look at it in a technical way because I do this, but somebody else, you'll get that same feeling. You just might not understand why. You don't have the technical know-how to put it into words. But everybody can look at something like that and be like, I don't know.
So there's
a lot of funnel pages are like that. Sorry to say.
I was reading about a sales page this morning. Someone had said this is, design-wise, one of the most visually compelling sales pages I had ever seen. And I will say it was designed to look like a mock-up of a Google Doc, right? So it had the whole like header up at the top and there were comments on it. It was very compelling. But the number of comments on this post of, I can't read this, I don't know what's for sale here, this looks wrong to me. So I feel like there's clearly a line between
design is form and function.
Right. But if I don't know if I don't know, and I'll give you an example here. My designer says to me that when I am making things in Canva, my problem is always that I don't understand white space. And I'm
Mhm.
like, can you say more to me? And she's like, well, you don't prioritize things visually. I'm like, I have no idea what that means. She spent probably 45 minutes, bless her heart, trying to explain this to me. I think kind of I have it, but I'm not a designer. I work
Mhm.
in Canva because it makes me look good most of the time. I still don't understand what I don't know. And
Yeah.
I think that's true for a lot of people. We can look at something visually and go, I don't like this, but not know why
Mhm.
I don't like this. So you're just saying trust that instinct of I don't like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally. Like it's that simple. If you can't if you have the best designed sales page ever and nobody can fucking read the text because it's 4 point, the designer did not do their job. Period. If you can't read it, you can't be educated about it. You can't know. I had a Facebook post right before we got on here. This is one of the reasons that I love packaging design. You don't have a lot of space to work with. It is a true skill to be able to design packaging in a way that gets attention and sells the product. You don't get a whole social media profile with like value bombing on it. You don't get a long form sales page. You don't get all of the copy in the world. You have to decide what is important and what makes its way on that label, and nothing else will fit.
And if it's a small product, you have even less real estate
Exactly.
to
It's
work
like,
with.
okay, what do we want people to see? What does everything else on this shelf look like? What would make me go, oh, okay, I'm going to look at this? And at least get somebody to take it off of the shelf and read it and, flip it around. That needs to be the goal. And that's something else with the design too. And I see this a lot, specifically with graphic design. You need to figure out the one goal for what it is that you're designing. Is it to catch attention? Is it to stop somebody from scrolling? Is it an ad? Are you trying to inform somebody of something? Do not make your graphic content carry a heavier load than it is supposed to. This is why you see logos that are super like complex and stuff like that. It's because everybody's like, oh, it has to do our marketing and our advertising, and it has to be identifiable, and it has to sell the product. No, it's a logo. It needs to be identifiable. That's it. That's all it needs to do.
Mhm.
You know, you've got a square graphic that you want to post on Facebook. What does it need to do? If you're a copywriter and your copy is like super solid and you're really good at it, I can guarantee all that image needs to do is stop somebody from scrolling so they read your post. You cannot cram all that copy in a square image. It's never going to work. But you see people try.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and the value, especially on a physical product,
Hmm.
cannot be understated here. But I think where I want to leave this is how do you decide what's important? What do I need to put on that physical real estate or in that ad? If my goal is to stop someone,
Hmm.
what absolutely has to be there?
Yeah. So it depends on the brand. I will give you an example because I've been drinking a Red Bull this entire time. Red Bull has a ton of brand awareness. They don't
Mhm.
need help in that department. If I go to the gas station and I get a Red Bull and I drink sugar-free ones, I'm looking for that logo and I'm looking for this blue color because this light blue is the sugar-free. That's it. That's all
That's
they
it.
need to do because they're Red Bull and they're a really big company and they have a ton of brand awareness.
Okay, so I'm not Red Bull. I'm a
Exactly.
new energy drink upstart.
Hmm.
I potentially, in my opinion, taste better than Red Bull because I think Red Bull tastes like trash.
I am more of a Monster fan. I will admit I like the zero sugar Monsters. They have started giving me headaches recently, so the Red Bulls don't.
taurine.
Yeah, so I think it's the erythritol,
Oh,
the artificial sweetener. I
artificial
think because
sweetener.
this doesn't have that in it, and these are fine. So yeah, I'm upset about it too, but here we are.
But how do I indicate to you then, who is clearly in the market for a new, better, sugar-free energy drink, that my energy drink is worth trying?
Yeah, so if you look at a cooler, you go to a gas station, you open the cooler, you're gonna see Red Bull, you're gonna see Monster, you're gonna see C4, you're gonna see Rockstar. What's that other shitty one that kind of looks like Monster? Rain. Make it look different than every single fucking one of those. Your job is to get somebody to be like, oh, what's that? And pick up that can and look. And then, so from this far away, you're looking at it at the cooler. All you can really see, if I pull it all the way back here, I don't know if my camera will focus. All you can really see is the logo and the colors, right? If it's here, you can read it. You need to catch attention so they pick it up, and read it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the copy, in the words and stuff like that, educate them a little bit. Be like, we don't use the same artificial sweetener as Monster. This won't give you headaches or a heart attack, which I learned that stuff does. Yeah. This has more caffeine than whatever. This has antioxidants. This has potassium. This is better for pre-workout. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever your little angle is. The job is to catch attention. You catch the attention, they pick up the can, and then they educate themselves.
Okay, so that works for a physical product.
Mm-hmm.
What if I am a service?
Same concept, different medium. If you're a service-based business, you are more than likely going to be on social media. And so going back to the example that I was talking about with the social posts, let's say you're a web developer. You take a picture and you show this beautiful website that you made, or a video even, whatever. What does it need to do? Does it need to catch somebody's attention? Are you designing, do you only design websites for people that are in, HVAC or construction? Why is this the website that you need? And then you can explain more in your copy. The words can educate, but the design has to get attention more often than not. That's not always the case, with infographics and stuff like that. You're doing both, but more often than not, you're using graphics to get attention, and you're using the words and the messaging and the tone of voice of that brand to educate and bring brand awareness.
And again, all you got to do is stop. That's all the brand is doing here. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's more that comes after that. That initial post-purchase, is the product good? I don't care how good Red Bull's branding is. If I didn't like how this tasted, I wouldn't drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I would have to, I guess, keep drinking Monsters until I had a heart attack. Because I like how those taste. I prefer how those taste, but, I can't drink them anymore. Same thing with anything else. When you're talking about a product, the product has to be good. Do not think that I'm sitting here saying like, oh, well, if you got a shitty product, you should just brand it and then make a whole bunch of money. And no, you've got to have a good product. That's the bare minimum that you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
You got into the bar and paid the cover charge. Congratulations. That's what you have to do. Everything else around that, once somebody decides, okay, I'll give this a try, and they drink it and they're like, oh man, this tastes great. Oh, you're right. I don't have a headache. I do have more energy. I'm going to go to the gym. And then they get a really good workout in, and maybe there's, BCAAs or beta alanine or something in here. It makes my muscles look a little bit bigger. I'm like, oh shit, that stuff's good. And then I go to their website. And then the website educates me a little bit more, and it looks really good and it's trustworthy. And I'm like, well, I know I already like the product. And then there's a pop-up that pops up and it's like, hey, get 25% off your first order. We've got a subscription box thing. You can get these delivered to your door. You don't have to go to the fucking gas station. And so then I do that, and then I get the box, and the box looks fucking cool. And there's free stickers in the box. Then I take the sticker and I put it on my car. There's levels to design, but each one of those things serves a certain purpose. It's not all trying to do it all.
And y'all, that is where we're leaving it, because next time I'm going to make Haley walk through all of those little steps she just talked about on the buyer journey and tell you how to get there, how to achieve that, how to build those relationships. Because here at the Neurodiversity Media Network, we truly believe that relationships are what we're doing here. And branding is just a part of that. Branding is how you invite me in. It's how you say, you are my people, and I want you to come on a journey with me. So
brands are meant to be experienced, not necessarily bought.
Yes. Next time we're going to talk about the experience and how you walk someone through that. And I'm really looking forward to it. Final thoughts? Any Unabomber quotes for us this week?
Not today.
Damn. Wow.
Not today. Apparently, I did figure out you cannot write to him in prison, by the way. They just send it back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
So there was a time.
There was a time where it was okay.
Where you could write to Ted Kaczynski.
Apparently now they just send it back to you.
Well,
and presumably put you on some sort of list.
I think that goes without saying. Truly. So next time, perhaps we'll find out if Haley actually sent that letter or if she just found this out on the internet. Who knows? We'll see next time. Y'all, thank you for being here. This has been the Neurodiversity Media Network. If you have not subscribed, that's at neurodiversitymedianetwork.com. If you are interested in branding with Haley and you want her to build you one of those 50-page brand identity guides, I believe that's at HaleyShane.com. And you should go and you should get one, because truly, this is the beginning of the journey for you. All right, folks, we will see you next time. Have a great